So, when I say the two words South Africa, what comes to mind, if I may ask?
South Africa is joy, it's pain, it's love. She's beautiful. She has incredible hope and lots of healing to do. And I love her.
Well, that leads us into today's episode of SparkXNation. My name is Michelle Eglin and I'm your host. And today we have the pleasure of having the voice, the lens, the love of Shirley Zinn join us in conversation. I'm struck by your opening words, Shirley. You hold South Africa in the mind with such fervor and such love. I'm wondering, Shirley, if you would just bring us into the story of you, what brings you here, and why you took up my invitation to come onto this show that really is all about her, South Africa, and the great love that we share for her, and how we might reimagine her for the greater good of this country.
Michelle, thank you. Because I love South Africa so much, and because I love the different voices of the 64 million voices and stories and journeys of joy, of pain, of struggle, of living in hope, living in despair, the paradoxes, the ironies, the diversity, and the incredible human spirit. South Africa is just a place of so much joy that is possible if we could see beyond our fragmentations, if we could see beyond our differences and see the unity that comes in our diversity. And we could embrace all of our people's voices and hopes and dreams. And I think that as a collective, with a united heart and a united soul, on a vision that truly is about creating a better life for all. And I do believe we have a past that was painful and hurtful, and we suffer many scars today still. And there are lots of reasons to be angry, and a lot of reasons why we've often stood still. And maybe the standing still is not stagnation. Maybe it is reflection and reset and re-energizing and having these kinds of conversations on platforms like this that enriches us and reignites us and sparks us to take the journey further and take the bold and courageous step as a nation that we love and we are proud of and we struggle so hard for, and that every voice feels like this is a place that they belong, where they are heard, where they are seen, and we true Ubuntu. I am because we are lives proudly.
I mean, I think we could pretty much wrap up the show right here, right now. It was just a beautiful way to kick off this conversation because you've hit all the notes in all the right places, Shirley. This is that show that thinks about this country as a whole. 64 million voices, 64 million realities, 64 million very difficult truths that are lived out in technicolor, complex, painful, raw, but this is us. And I think it matters that we confront the reality of who this great country is, because if we don't take ownership of her and her road and her unfolding story, we are really not being true to the potential that this country holds. And I couldn't agree with you more that the time couldn't be riper for these kinds of conversations. So it is a great gift to have you here to deepen this very courageous conversation. I want to be playful, Shirley, as we are.
Yes.
we're both very creative souls and very, very passionate about obviously strategy, leadership, etc. And what better way to bring those qualities to this country and her evolving story? So if we were to think about South Africa as if she was a person, just someone like you and me, a person right here, right now in the room, I'm very curious to hear, Shirley, what would you say to this dear person that we care so deeply about? It's quite a complex question because, we can't see ourselves, but when we observe someone else, we surely and certainly have interesting observations that we make. So I'm very curious to hear what you would say to our dear South Africa if she was right here in the room with us, right here, right now. I wonder if you could dream a little and be playful with me around this particular question.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to try. South Africa is just incredible from the journey that it's been on, if you go back many decades, many centuries. And we all know those stories. We tell them in different ways, with different viewpoints and vantage points, and we intertwine that with our own stories. And but we are South Africa. We are not just South Africans. We are South Africa. Each one of us. And we carry South Africa in our hearts and in our souls. And South Africa is the mother. South Africa is a daughter. South Africa is a teacher. South Africa is a leader. And South Africa has taken some pain, has been through some struggle, has shown enormous resilience, and we'll never forget 1994 as a major milestone for us. And many lives were lost, and many sacrifices were made, and we stood and continue to stand on the shoulders of incredible leaders who have been out there through all the dark times that we have faced. And we still continue to face some very challenging times. The geopolitics of the day is unprecedented and shifting tectonic plates everywhere. And, we are agile. We have seen enormous energy, and we have seen with pride, how we can stand up in this world and have a voice. And so I've been watching you, South Africa, with great interest, especially after these past few months. And we want to celebrate 1994, but we don't want to lose the spirit of what that moment meant. We don't want it to become a museum piece. We want it to be actively living on in our hearts in terms of our hard-earned freedom and our ability within our own selves to change South Africa for the better in everything that we do, wherever we show up. And we have faced huge adversity, and we've shown resilience. We have shown that there's very little that can conquer the human spirit, especially ourselves, because we are the children of our mother, South Africa. And we are grateful that you have been resilient and that you've made it through very difficult times. And we're excited about what lies ahead. And so I want to say to us, yes, we have a torrid past. And I think it's up to each one of us, wherever we find ourselves, to take a moment every day and think about the difference we can make, our individual selves, but to also think about the difference we can make when we stitch the mosaic of 64 million people into a beautiful tapestry of what we all represent. And we can show that to the world on any stage, whether it be arts or performance or music or sport or belief in what is right for our environment, what is right for education of our young children, and what is right in terms of our values as leaders. And so if I were your coach today, South Africa, I would say that our founding values are very, very important. Respect for each other, humility that is able to apologize when we've made mistakes and do that authentically. Humility to get up when we've fallen over and ask for help and move on. The ability to be kind, the ability to deliver with excellence, the ability to be generous and to be in service of humanity. And I went to a school called South Peninsula, as we were saying earlier, and their motto was not to be served, but to serve. Non ministrari sed ministrare. And those words have stayed with me, and I believe that it's deeply embedded in the psyche of who we are as South Africans. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be loved. And we want to say to you, South Africa, that we are here to listen, that we are here to act, and we are here to move you forward with great enthusiasm and excitement, because we know that you have the potential. And again, at that school, I came from difficult circumstances in the Cape Flats. I can talk endlessly about, gangsterism and gender violence and, lack of access to quality education and drugs and alcohol and teenage pregnancies. I can talk about that, but I can also talk about talent that has emerged in all ways, shapes, and forms from the very ashes of apartheid, from the difficulty of family trauma. And this is what we need to nurture. We need to nurture this new joy at what is possible for our young people through education. And I think we've lost our way, South Africa, in education. I would definitely like to say that wherever I am, I try to say, can we live for our children in a much better way than we are doing now? It has been excruciating to watch what happens in our schools, what happens with teachers, what happens in communities. And I want us to lift our game around that, especially for our youth who continue to have a very high number of unemployed graduates. It should not be that way. So I'd like you to reflect on that, South Africa, if you can, and maybe we can have another conversation together about what we might do about that.
This show could go on for days, and hopefully it does, Shirley, because it's quite the reckoning. It's quite the reckoning. It's quite the mirror
Indeed.
that you've held up to this great nation. You've helped her to see dimensions of herself that she might not quite grasp at times, and you've done it with such compassion and courage. I love how you've given her this window into her strengths, her resilience, her ability to make meaning out of suffering and to leverage that for the greater good of the whole. I love that you've spoken to her darkness and her pain and her suffering, because it is real. It is the very painful truths that South Africans hold and that they struggle with and that they are processing. And so that kindness that you speak of, that we need to bring that kindness to every moment, because we never know what people are holding within them, and how you are opening up your heart to her, to walk alongside her, not to abandon her, but to truly be her ally in taking bold steps forward. I mean, you've captured a beautiful essence that I think is really part of all our stories in this country. Collectively, we are her. Our inner worlds and what is unprocessed in each of us shapes South Africa's reality out there. We can't legislate ourselves out of the complexities that we have within us. No amount of legislation will crack that code within every South African. And so the work is still with the individual, but knowing that somehow we're interconnected, we all belong, and we are all writing one story and co-authoring that story together. I think the next chapter of this country is going to take the courage that you've brought to this conversation. It's going to take every South African to really think about and reflect on some of these very complex truths and hard truths, and ultimately find a way to use what they've learned from that reflection productively. I'm now very curious to dive a little bit deeper, since we've had such a rich and very layered sort of entry point into this great country. What are some of the hopes and dreams that you have for this country, for this person, South Africa? So let's stay with that, because I think it's interesting, because we prevent ourselves from splitting, deepening the fragmentation, blaming, That's not what the show's about. This show is really focusing on the whole, finding ways of us to really dance together as a nation, productively for the greater good, because it's really going to take all of us. It's not going to take a political compact, a party or a leader to save anyone. It's going to take every South African. So I'm very curious to hear, South Africa is right here, right now in the room with us. She's the third person in this conversation, a critical person. I'm curious to hear, what are your hopes and dreams for this dear South Africa in the room? Here she is. What do you hope for her at this moment in time? Because she's endured much. She's coalesced with much complexity, and she's navigating the high seas of her own story amidst geopolitics, etc., and much complexity out there. But here she is right now, right? And she's standing on the bedrock of all this darkness, and she's made sense of a lot of it. But where does she go from here? How does she pivot from here? What are your hopes and dreams for our dear South Africa in the room, right here, right now? I'm not sure what comes to mind, but very curious to hear.
My beloved South Africa.
Here we go.
I have so much I could tell you. I could keep you all day. But I do want to say that as a teacher, two teachers said to me when I was in matric, and I didn't ever think I was going to get there because of all the challenges. And I didn't know what I was going to be done when I finally got there. And there were two teachers, and at this moment of shaping and influencing one's life. It's influenced my life, and I'm sure, South Africa, this little message can influence your life. And they said something very simple to me. They said, you're not the brightest pea in the pod here, but here's the thing. You have the potential to do so much more. So go home and talk to your parents about university tonight. And come back tomorrow and tell us how we can help you to get there. And so, South Africa, we have to believe in you, and you have to believe in us. And we have to believe in each other. And today, I think a key message is that we have enormous potential right here within ourselves. And I want to gift you with that. I want to say, what can we do with this potential? And when we look back in the next 100 years at this conversation, what will we see that we have done differently than what we've done before this conversation? And that conversation for me was so powerful, and there are lots of dimensions to it. The first is it took me off on a trajectory of life, of development, of opportunity, of being able to thrive and grow in a way that I would never, ever have imagined. So I'm grateful, South Africa, for voices that came and influenced and shaped me. And sometimes I could have missed that last sentence. I could have missed because I was listening only to the first sentence that sounded like, you are not great. And you probably don't have a chance at all. But I decided I would listen and act on the second sentence. And that was South Africa, the conversation that shifted my entire life from that moment on. And we are all teachers in various ways. And as you know, as a nation, we have many lessons to learn every day. But we need to be in tune with ourselves and listening to the 64 million voices with a lot more, be more deliberate and be more intentional about listening to those voices and not trying to answer before and not trying to solve the problem before the statement has been completed. So we need to listen to each other. We need to reflect a little bit more, not be overly hasty in a reaction, but a deeply well thought through response is what brings the impact. And that had impacted my life so much. Today, I'd like to gift that to you, South Africa, because you too have enormous potential. You have a spirit second to none. You've come back from the toughest rejection, adversity, trauma, tragedy, and you still have this shining light, a beacon of hope. Even on this planet, you have shown yourself to be a beacon of hope on many, many stages. And so today I want to say, South Africa, and the leaders who live within each one of us, to sign up as a call to action, to understand our impact in this world, and to get alongside of South Africa and hold her hand as we navigate through tumultuous times, through the scars and hurt and pain of our past, and to a brighter future for our children and generations to come. And do that with joy, do that with love, do that in a way that challenges all of us, but in a way that shapes us and enables us to influence the final outcome of the journey of a nation, of a journey of a human being of 64 million voices called South Africa.
Shirley, this conversation will keep South Africans chewing on every word and reflecting on every powerful statement that has been voiced through this conversation. I'm struck and inspired and sparked. And I know that South Africans listening today, from pavement to parliament, are going to have a lot to think about tonight, and hopefully the night thereafter and into the future, because it's going to take cultivation at the individual level across the board. This is not work that belongs to just you and I, Shirley. This work belongs to all of us. This is the work that moves a nation. When we can shift our gaze inward, catalytic things become possible for this country. And we are those catalysts, as you've shared. Each one of us is alive with potentiality. And we must listen to the second part of the conversation and not just the first statement we hear about what is not working or where we fail or where we're not supposedly good enough. And I think this is really just fantastic and interesting and timely, that we give South Africa this very loved person, this very loved being, this very special country. These kinds of anecdotes, because it matters now. The time couldn't be riper for conversations like this. But in South Africa's story, I have had such a pleasure in this moment to together, yourself and myself, so Shirley and me, sort of hand in hand, walking alongside this country and we know that we stand in the room with 64 million voices, 64 million people in the room. And it's important, as we close this conversation, to end off with that we are co-authors in this journey. Every voice matters. Every voice is shaping this country, and everyone has influence. And we are all leading this country's trajectory. Thanks again, Shirley. It has been a delight being in conversation with you and hearing the fruits of your story. The engagement that you brought today has been exceptional, and you've helped us see ourselves just that bit clearer to move us all forward. Thank you very much, Shirley, for your time and for being here today.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.